Hi gamers, it's Marina.
And Fancy.
And today we have a Hearthstone Battlegrounds update. They just announced minutes ago from when we're recording this, brand new patch notes for a patch dropping today, which I would expect to already be out by the time you see this video. But yeah, some changes that I think are much needed. We're gonna go over the Battlegrounds stuff specifically today, so let's get into it. All right, so we're starting with Battlegrounds updates. I like the dev comment here. We hope you're enjoying the return of buddies as well as their debut in duos. In this patch, we're primarily addressing buddy performance outliers. Most of these are tier adjustments, pretty much what we expected, though some have additional changes where tiers would not have been sufficient. In addition, we made some minion adjustments to reduce frustrating play patterns with beasts, repeated battle cries, and frankly, crimes in duos, which I, as a duos player, have to agree with. I'm they're making light of it, but I am glad that they are aware and they're doing something. We also gave a bit more support to underperforming types. We'll continue to monitor the meta as it develops and make more adjustments as needed. Starting right off with hero power changes. Alistraza, who got a change in the most recent update, had their whole hero power reworked. They used to discover dragons when they got to tier 5, just a one-off, discover 2 dragons. Now they got to tier 4 and they get a discover a dragon every turn, but that was a bit too strong, getting it for free every turn. So it looks like now they are charging 1 gold to discover a dragon, which I still think is extremely strong. I still think this is going to be a good hero. I think 1 gold is fine. I mean, free is always great, right? Because you can sometimes spend your whole turn to tier up or do whatever it might be, and you get something for free, or just... I think Alistraza is going to be fine. This is probably a bit balanced, a bit more balanced.
It's just like Ashara. Ashara discovering a Naga for 1 gold, and now Alistraza gets a dragon for 1 gold.
Yeah. With Onyxia, we have a change. Finally, Onyxia was always a hero to me that was never really strong in the end game. Like, Onyxia didn't win, but Onyxia just kind of ruined the game for everyone else in the early game, is what it felt like. It's nice to see Onyxia getting a change from Avenge 3 to Avenge 4. So this might have to do with buddy balancing too. I haven't seen too much Onyxia play with the buddies, so I don't know just how strong it is. But I know, as someone who doesn't really play Onyxia and is always extremely annoyed to see Onyxia in my matchups, I welcome this change. All right, we have hero armor changes. We're not going to go through all these one by one, but I'll just go through heroes that have gotten a nerf. It looks like they were too strong. Galewing, Scabs, Murloc Holmes, Zyrella, Rakara, Varden, Heist Baron, Thorum, and Rockmaster Voon. Alright. And it looks like virtually... I'm not even going to read all these because it looks like virtually every other hero. Not really every other one, but I'm sure there's some that didn't get adjusted.
Yeah.
Have more armor, so... I think a lot of the ones that were just not performing as well, a few of these like just immediately jump out to me, like Pure Mad. I don't think I ever had any interest in taking Pure Mad during this buddy metric. Although some of them, like Sneed, has more armor, and I think Sneed is actually in a very strong place. Maybe this has to do with the Gulakabra change. We'll see in a second, but yeah, I don't know. All right, buddy changes. So it looks like they're changing Velistraz. Velistraz was a tier 3, which meant Velistraz was extremely easy to get. Velistraz you could drop down on your board and then have a Yulon that you might have discovered into and just make every single copy of your Velistraz golden. So you could very easily, without anyone else's help, just get 3 golden buddies, right? If you were playing Alistraza. This is probably going to be much better for balance. Also, Velistraz just is a better effect now. Battle Cry and Start of Combat give your other minions +3/+3, so now it is a better promo Drake. Before, it was kind of like a quote-unquote worse promo Drake. I think that really depends on the build you're playing and what you're doing, but now it is just objectively a better promo Drake. Alright, Queen Azshara got a change to their buddy from tier 4 to tier 6. I think Azara was in an extremely strong place. So we had a video where we got to use this Azara and just absolutely dominated. This buddy made Azara basically one of the heroes who could just scale out super strong without any help from their partner in duos. And that's not really common to see in the current duos meta, so it's nice to see this get pushed a little bit so you don't get this super extreme scaling as early on. Everything else is still the same, so Ashara is still strong. I'm sure it's just gonna take a turn or two longer to get things going. All right, Captain Hogger got a change. This looks like, oh, this is a text change. This is not just a tier change. They're actually not changing the tier at all. Still a tier 5. It used to be after you buy a pirate, gain +1/+1 and add a pirate to the tavern. Now it's after you buy 2 pirates, gain +1/+1 and add a pirate to the tavern. I think, I'm gonna be honest, I think this kind of just kills this buddy.
Yeah.
The whole
it's a significant nerf.
Yeah, the whole point was being able to get this buddy and then just only have to have that one spot in the tavern where you're buying a pirate and playing it and immediately buying the next pirate and just cycling. Just cycling and cycling and cycling. And this opened up something. I actually just had a game right before I recorded this video. I had a solo game where I was playing Hogger and I only had to go to tier 3. And that's how strong this buddy was. Like, just with tier 3, 1, 2, and 3 minions, essentially. I was able to just destroy the lobby.
I think you might still be able to do the tier 3, like stay on tier 3 strat just because it's buy 2 pirates, and if you run into a lot of gamblers. It does make it a little bit more RNG, but you could possibly still do it.
It could be, but I don't know. I think with this change, I'm probably going to be avoiding Hogger now.
Yeah, it makes it pretty rough.
Yeah, I think Hogger was one of the strongest people you could have. Now not so much. I think this just guts this card in the buddies meta. All right, Acolyte of Yogg Saron. Looks like we got a change. Went from tier 4 to tier 5. Also note here, Curse of Flesh now only gives 1 friendly minion stats of another friendly minion instead of 2 minions gaining stats. Okay.
It's a stat swap.
Yeah, bit of a nerf there. I think Yogg Saron is just, it's very RNG heavy, so
Yeah.
you know, you can still play RNG and just absolutely destroy if you get lucky, and you can just get nothing really good off the wheel. So it's definitely a nerf. Not great for Yogg Saron enjoyers. All right, Sarfang got a pretty cut and dry change from tier 4 to tier 5. I don't think this is killing Sarfang or anything like that. I think Sarfang is still going to be extremely strong, particularly in duos where you can see some really wild combinations with Sarfang and other heroes. All right, Baziel's buddy going from tier 3 to tier 4, cut and dry. All right. Also scrolling down, I see Maev going from tier 2 to tier 3. 9 Frogs going from tier 5 to tier 6. It looks like we got a few of these ones right here. Blackthorn's buddy going from 5 to 6. Boxcars going from 4 to 6. 2 tiers up. I guess this one is being seen as very strong. Again, it's RNG, so I don't know. Boxcars never really screamed to me as like an amazing buddy. I'm a little surprised to see it at 6 and not 5, but
Yeah.
I think it has the potential to swing a game if you get a good spell. Who knows? Shenvala going from tier 3 to tier 4 on their buddy. Rakanishu going from tier 4 to tier 5. Greybow getting their buddy from tier 4 to tier 5. Elise tier 2 to tier 3. So a lot of just slight adjustments. Vol'jin going from 5 to 6. I think Vol'jin is very strong. There's some really interesting things you can do with this buddy. So I think 6 is honestly probably a good spot for this because Vol'jin's pretty strong. Reno Jackson has a buddy change from tier 1 to tier 2. So you can't get it as early. Sneed went from 5 to 6. That makes sense. Sneed's buddy's very strong right now. Fester Gut went from tier 3 to tier 4. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't played Professor Putricide. I think Putricide is still not in duos. So we primarily play duos, so just haven't had a chance to play Putricide in a very long time. Innie Stormcoil got her mech buddy from tier 4 to tier 5. AFK. Okay, so now this is not a tier change. This is just a stat change. A drop in stats. I haven't been one to make the plunge to play AFK. I haven't played this buddy at all. I love AFK pre-buddies. But with buddies, this buddy just doesn't seem, like, amazing to me. Like, getting +1/+2 on tier 3 minions just doesn't seem like something...
Yeah, it doesn't seem very significant.
I would want, yeah, so... Seeing this get nerfed, I don't know. I'm assuming that AFK was probably very strong in the early and mid game, but I don't know. We play a lot of duos, and we've never gone up against an AFK, and the dozens of games we've played, that has like destroyed a lobby or something. So I'm not sure why this got a nerf, but okay. The Curator's buddy went from tier 3 to tier 4. It's a pretty good buddy. Some good things you can do. Something I just saw that I didn't know, so maybe this is a secret, a well-guarded secret, is this is whenever your Malcolm gains stats, this gains them too, and I guess that doesn't mean it's actually getting the same exact kind of stats. For example, if you spellcraft your Malcolm, apparently Mishmash just goes up in stats and never loses them when the Amalgam loses the spellcraft the next turn.
So like crooner spells and
yeah, so apparently this was really strong in Naga. I never saw it in the wild. We never got to try it. So we'll have to see if this is true. Yeah. All right, George the Fallen's buddy went down a tier from tier 4 to tier 3. Yeah, this is, I might be wrong. I might be missing something, but I think that this is an awful buddy. It is, especially with charging Zarina in the meta, which I think is just a much better minion. It's a type, it's a mech, so you can put magnetics on it. This Carl the Lost is a neutral card. You can't, buff it as easily. And also, it's when you use your hero power, you're not able to have it go off a bunch of times like you could with charging Zarina. You're getting it to go off once, maybe a couple times if you're able to get some like shark bait Crag's buddy to reset your, but at that point, like, it's not, that's like, what is your build, what are you doing, like, I think George is not in a good spot here. Or if I play George, I dump the buddy. I don't even worry about this guy. Murloc Holmes got a buff, their buddy going from tier 3 to tier 2. SI7 Scout, so this is Admin Van Cleave's buddy. It went from tier 2 to tier 1, so even easier to get. I think this is an extremely weak buddy. It's strong early game, I am sure, but this just doesn't hold up, right?
It seems like the Walmart version of Sourfang's buddy.
Yeah, right? Like Sourfang's buddy. With Sourfang's buddy, you buy a minion and it gets all the stats. This, you buy a card and it gets a 1/1. I get it. It's tier 1 compared to tier 5 now, I guess, Sourfang's buddy. But, like, I don't know. This is a tier 1, that's for sure. Meaning you're probably not going to keep this on your board for very long. Alright, Scab's buddy went from tier 4 down to tier 3. Varden also had their buddy go from 4 to 3. Rikara's buddy went from 4 to 3. Galewing going from tier 2 to tier 1. So I guess this is a buff. I thought Galewing was performing pretty well, so interesting to see a buff to their buddy. Wax the Dread also going down from tier 5 to tier 4. This, I think we say as, like, players who have played, like, Tess and Scabs and get this buddy often when we steal. This buddy seems like an extremely strong buddy. I don't know if it's less strong when you're actually playing Togwaggle, but I'm a bit surprised that this is going from tier 5 to tier 4. Mutinous buddy going from tier 3 to tier 2. I think that's good, honestly. We've tried to play Mutinous a few times, and he just doesn't seem to have the tools to to compete with some of the other heroes in the early and mid game to actually get to the end game where you can be doing some wild things like having a super buffed ectoplasm and get it all over your board. We'll have to see if this helps. Zyrella having their buddy go from tier 3 to tier 2. Also a buddy that I don't quite understand, or at least I don't quite see how you can end up scaling this thing to
Yeah,
any...
you don't see a lot of people use this really and keep it on their board.
Yeah, exactly. Even when we do see a Zyrella player, this thing is gone, you know, mid-game. Gallywix got their buddy lowered from 4 to 3. That's decent. I think that's good. I think Gallywix actually is weaker during this buddy's meta than before. And I think Gallywix is a strong hero, typically. Akali, Rock Rhino, Master Voon's buddy going from 4 to 3. This buddy, again, as Tess and Scabs players, getting this buddy is amazing. This buddy is great to steal. As Voon, I feel like this is already in a strong place, so surprised to see this go down to 3. Fungal Mancer, Flurgle's buddy, the Sparkfin Soothsayer, going from tier 5 to tier 3. Honestly, I think this is in a much better place at tier 3. We've tried a couple times with Flurgle because I think the effects, the text effects of this buddy are very strong. I think this is actually really good, but I do think tier 5 is a bit late in comparison to how strong other people's buddies are. I think this is going to be a very welcome change. Varanus is going from tier 3 to tier 2. That's interesting. My feeling with Varanus is that it is a card you don't really want on your board for long. It's nice to get a minion to tier 7 or maybe even 2, but like this thing just takes up spots on your board. It doesn't add to any kind of synergy of a build you might have. Like I try to get rid of this thing as quickly as possible once it's served its purpose. And having this at tier 2 means you can start that sooner, which is nice. Dancing Daryl's buddy going from tier 4 to tier 2. I think that's good. I don't think this buddy was extremely strong. Interesting effect. I think it's going to be a welcome change. Goya, which is a duos only buddy, having Mr. Chu go up from tier 4 to tier 5. That is an increase. Yeah, we've only gotten Goya like once or twice, I think.
I think
whole
they
buddies
pulled
update.
Goya out.
Oh, that's right. That's right. They did. Yeah, okay, that makes sense then. I would say we have only got Goya like once or twice, and when we did, this buddy was great.
Yeah, seemed a little overpowered, and I'm assuming that's why they pulled Goya out, and there was some overpowered things you could do, and they're probably adjusting it.
No text change though. Like it's still the same strong effect, so Goya having to wait till tier 5 or for a tier 5 buddy. I think this is still going to be just as strong. All right, we got some minion pool changes. This was already teased before, but no more Draconic Death Scale, meaning no more triggering battle cries through that spellcraft. There are still ways to do battle cries. End of turn with Young Murkai and in combat with Rylak. I think the bigger thing is that there are some battle cries you really want to go off mid-game. Those are a lot of buddy battle cries that have to do with your tavern. For example, Galakron's buddy that refreshes your tavern with higher tier minions. You can't do that with Rylak. It doesn't matter in combat. And you can't do that with Young Murkai because it just refreshes at the end and then they're unfrozen anyway. You don't get them. So Draconic Death Scale was one of the stronger ways of triggering those. Now it's pretty much just up to Well-Wisher. If you're playing duos, you grab the battle cry and throw it over, or Shudderwalk. I guess it's a buff.
Which I feel like
to Shudderwalk's uniqueness.
Yeah, Shudderwalk playing Kobor just seems much better than everyone else since he's gonna be able to proc Gem Smuggler.
Yes, because Gem Smuggler is back. Hunter of Gatherers is back. I don't know if they're changing either of these. I guess we'll scroll down and see, but yeah, I'm assuming that these are probably going to be the same. But we have some changes to beasts, which beasts have been all over the place this season. Beasts were very weak when they first brought them out, and then they buffed Skyblazer and Trigor, and they got extremely strong. Like, putting Trigor in tier 4 made it really strong. And now it looks like they're pulling that back. So Iridescent Skyblazer is still on tier 5, but they're changing the effect. Whenever a friendly beast takes damage, give a friendly beast other than it +1/+1 permanently. So essentially the same effect, except it's only gaining +1/+1 instead of +1/+2. And then Trigor, whenever another friendly beast takes damage, gain +2 health permanently. I actually think, correct me if I'm wrong, Fen, but I think when Trigor first dropped this season, it was a health minion, right? A plus health minion?
Only, yes.
Yeah, so they're kind of reverting Trigor back to, around, like, similar to where it started. I don't know what the stats were at that point, but I guess Trigor now will only gain health, not attack.
I assume this is because they want you to have to pair this with Gulakabra or Iridescent Skyblazer.
Yeah, I mean, I think Trigor was one of those minions, and we experienced this in our games a few times, where you can get a Trigor on... You get a Trigor turn 5 or 6, or 4 even, somehow extremely luckily. You're buying that. Like, there's something wrong if you are not buying that. It was too good of a minion that just dominated. But that said, we would be in turns 9 and 10 sometimes, see a Trigor, and be able to flip our entire board away from whatever else we were playing, and win games, because Trigor was that strong. So now, I think Trigor is definitely not a board flipper anymore. It's still probably strong if you have a Skyblazer or a Gulakabra or something, but I think beasts are not going to be as dominant now, which honestly I think is pretty good. I think they went from being weak to being annoyingly strong, and hopefully now they're in a better place. We'll see. All right, we got some dragon buffs too in this patch. Electric Synthesizer, which is a battle cry, went from giving dragons +3/+1 to +3/+2. That's, I mean, a welcome change, giving dragons a little bit more health.
Yeah.
Terragosa went base stats from 4/4 to 5/5. I think that's pretty good. I think Terragosa actually has been weaker this season because Poet is just so good to have Poets on your board and basically make everything on your board into Terragosa. Not that Terragosa doesn't have a place or hasn't, you know, been a star on our boards and in Dragon boards, but I think it's not as exciting as Poet. It's nice to see a little bit of a base stat buff. Whelp Smuggler as well. Whelp Smuggler is a card that is really good if you have the right setup early enough to get some good stats on it. I think Whelp Smuggler took a hit when we lost Time Captain Hooktail, because that was a really great combo. You had a Hooktail giving an attack, you had Whelp Smuggler giving health, everything was going up together. Now, I think Whelp Smuggler is seeing less play, so it makes sense why they gave it some stats. Rallier, we got an attack buff to the effect, so whenever the dragon attacks, give it +3/+1. I think this means much more annoying dragon early game boards, which honestly, for dragon going up against some of the other strong early game boards, I think it's probably going to feel nice if you're playing dragons. You're not going to, you know, you're going to be able to actually get through some things, especially because health typically is pretty low. Also, Rallier itself got a health buff, which is nice. Stays alive longer, having 6 health as opposed to 5. All right, Gulakabra change. I think the change that everybody was hoping for,
yeah.
unless you like bullying people on Battlegrounds. Gulakabra has been just absolutely dominating every single match that it's in. Anytime we have been playing with beasts or undead in the past week, we just like let out a sigh and know that it's going to be
It's the race to Gulakabra.
Exactly.
Whoever gets Gulakabra first wins, basically.
Yeah, so
Which
it
is just not fun. So I'm very happy that this is getting changed.
So we have a change here, and it is the change that I predicted. It is, instead of triggering death rattles, you now have to have a death rattle minion die to get the buff. So it's still +2/+2 to all your minions permanently, but it cannot be abused. We played a game last night that was probably the worst abuse of this I've ever seen. I think literally what I thought about when they said crimes are being committed in duos. And it was I'm pretty sure it was a beatboxer that was triggered by a macaw, and the beatboxer just had, like, I kid you
It
not,
had
like
16 of the replicating menaces inside of it.
Yeah.
And they had a golden ribbon dare, so that was about 16 times 3 death rattle triggers.
So yeah,
It
so that thing was going off. We sat there. It took like a whole minute, I think, for the animations to finish for the macaw attacking once, and then the macaw attacks again a second time, and you have to wait a whole nother minute. Like,
And then the beatboxer dies, and you have to wait again.
yeah, and we lost that turn, but I'm sure that if we had another turn, it would have gone straight into combat again. It was awful. That was the worst I saw. But even at best, it was just, I don't know. Gulakabra has been, in my opinion, really making Battlegrounds unfun in the last week or two, because you basically get a wild high roll where you get Gulakabra early, buff your whole board, or you don't, and someone else does, and then you feel really bad about losing. Yeah, it hasn't been fun. So, is Gulakabra dead? I don't think so, but Gulakabra is no longer, like, the guaranteed game winner that it was before. And I think that's good. I don't think any card should be that, right?
Yeah.
I don't think there should be any one card ever in Battlegrounds at any given time that is just, like, the card everyone goes for. Like, it was Pokey in Quillbore before we had buddies, right? When Pokey was still an end-of-turn effect. And this season it was Gulakabra. Right now, with Gulakabra going away, I don't think there's anything else that fills that spot, which is good. That's the best balance for Battlegrounds, right? So I'm looking forward to that. All right, Moonbake and Jazzer brought down to tier 2. This is a welcome change for Quillbore. However, I will say, with Gem Smuggler coming back, who basically made Quillbore extremely strong, we will see. Maybe Quillbore are going to now become the dominant tribe, which I'm kind of predicting. I don't know. We'll see if we're right there. But yeah, I think this is going to be very strong at tier 2. This was a tier 2 at one point, I feel like, in the past.
Yeah.
They moved this one around.
Too.
But yeah, you were going to say that?
I will point out that we haven't seen Gem Smuggler in this list, which means that it is probably just as it was before, no changes.
Right, which is a battle cry, give all of your minions +1 blood gem.
Blood gem.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and it looks like our last change here to cards is Boon of Beetles. No longer will summon a bunch of beetles for you. Instead, it's only a 1 gold spell now. And when you have space, it summons a 10/10 beetle with taunt. I think this is a huge nerf to this card. This card was basically the scam saver. I like to save you against scam, right? You would run this.
This was pretty much just like, it was at the point where you see beetles, you buy beetles. Doesn't even matter what you're running, if you're running beasts or not. Like, every match, like 80% of the time, it'd be like, oh, this person has beetles. Of course they have beetles.
Yeah, because the biggest thing beetles did was when you had 4 beetles pop up, and they're popping up one at a time, and every attack your opponent does, they're hitting a beetle and destroying it. It's allowing your minions to potentially have extra attacks in, and letting, those really strong early board. Like, if you have a macaw on the front of your board and it doesn't die, and then you have beetles, and you have a giant Gulakabra board or whatever was going on, and you get all the way to the end, and they kill all your beetles, and then you go back to the beginning, your macaw gets to go off again, and buff your already giant board again. Like, it was very frustrating to play against beetles. I think the 1/10/10 beetle with taunt is a much better balance. You can still run this, by the way. Like, this is not bad if you're running a cleave, or you're just running something that you want to give your board a little bit extra space, but it's just no longer going to be that, like, that complete,
that buy it no matter what card.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it did feel extremely bad to play against someone who played beetles where you were about to win, but because they played that beetle spell, you lost, right? It always feels really awful when something like that happens, because it was more reliable than something like the spell that costs 3 gold, and when you play it, one of the opponent's minions goes down to 1 health. That's RNG. Beetles was a lot less RNG, it felt like. So this I think is a good change for the state of Battlegrounds. All right, so there's some last couple miscellaneous changes we see. The Jailer's buddy is removed from ETC's power pool. Yay! That has to be one of the most annoying buddies to see. And it was never when we would play against Jailer, because you don't see a lot of people playing Jailer. Instead, it would always be whenever there was an ETC, you would see one, if not two of these things early game. They would just absolutely dominate because you can't do anything when you're having to fight 12 tier 1 minions and you only own 2. Yeah, so I'm happy that is not there anymore. Lightning invocation on Spirit Raptor can no longer be triggered in the recruit phase. I guess you were able to get this to go off, and you can't anymore. Alright, several additional heroes will no longer be able to be paired together in duos. Shutterwalk and Zephyrus the Great were the biggest defenders with the most new band pairings. Alright, so it seems like there were some heroes that were too strong together, so they're going to make sure that it's impossible for two different partners to have those options, is what they're saying here. Honestly, I think that's a good move. I know that we would play duos and have some pairings that just absolutely, like, destroyed lobbies. Like, there was nothing we can do. And we've also played many times against two heroes together that just demolish, right? It seemed like the balancing is much harder in duos with buddies. I like that they change things up with buddies, but I would like them to try to balance it better. So I'm looking forward to this new patch and seeing how things go. I think that's basically it. We have some bug fixes down here for Battlegrounds. It looks like
We get a fix for crashes, please.
yeah, can we that's the bug fix that I want. Your game doesn't crash anymore and doesn't take 10 minutes to reconnect. That's I'm waiting for that one.
Me too.
But let us know what you're excited for. Let us know in the comments what new changes you like. If you're upset with the changes, are you mourning the loss of Gulakabra, or are you happy that you no longer are going to see Gulakabra on every single warband in every single game? Yeah. Well, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't seen our other videos, we do post gameplay videos for Hearthstone Battlegrounds duos. Check us out. Subscribe, and yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.